Yes, we are.
Hello, hello.
Good morning,
Welcome.
good afternoon, good evening.
Welcome to an honest look. It's just us.
It's just us again. Yes.
Just us again. One of our, what this is us was one of our potential names for this podcast, but we went for an honest look.
And I like the honest look.
I love the honest look, and it is just us today. Good to see you, Rick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And really good to see you too. It's been one heck of a week, hasn't it?
Right, and we're on time. It's 4 o'clock. We came
Yes.
on time.
Yeah.
We didn't keep people waiting. Our audio is working today. Things do turn around.
What's that?
Things do turn
Oh,
around.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean that's part of what we kind of keep reminding people that, as much as it feels like we're not making any progress or we're hanging on for, like it's taking a long time, when you look back, you've come a long way. We've come a long way.
We just have a habit of looking at everything that we don't get done, right? That's
Yes.
kind of how we're wired, right? To
Yes.
to focus on where we're not, to focus on what we haven't gotten done, and to focus on how much we still have to do and all the things that have gone wrong, right? It's all habits. In case
And,
you
and,
haven't noticed, that's what we're going to be focusing on today.
and one of the habits I would like to get into, and this is a little spontaneous though, is I'd like to introduce you.
Oh, go ahead. How are you going to introduce me?
Well, I just think, like at the start of our podcast, we have guests and we introduce them right at the beginning. But a lot of times,
Right.
in this podcast, we just get right into it, and we rarely, say, hey, I'd like you to meet a good friend of mine, a colleague, a wonderful coach,
Right.
Fatí Light.
Thank you for that introduction. Same to you. And you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to spill some beans if I can.
You're going to spill some beans?
Yeah, can I spill some beans and
Yes,
like
go. Sure.
let people know that we're going to be releasing a couple of special episodes where we're going to be interviewing each other so that
Oh,
you
yes.
can find out about what we're all about, where we came from, what our stories are. Who is Rick? Who's the man behind the name?
And fatigue, right? What's what's that all about, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be an exciting episode. So be sure you subscribe, follow us on Facebook or on YouTube. We're also on LinkedIn, and yeah, you'll get notification when those shows are going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well,
Let's dive in. Let's make it a habit of talking about each other. I'm going to stop. I promise. I will stop. No more
okay,
bad.
all right.
But it can be a good habit. There's good and bad habits. Should we
Well,
start?
that we talked about this earlier, right? We talk about the power of breaking habits, and when we're talking about breaking habits, we tend to point towards the ones that don't seem to serve us very well. Like we call them bad habits,
Right.
and and we all have them. We live with habits all the time. Some of them are actually good habits, and maybe we should hang on to them. They do serve us well.
Well, truthfully, that's what we are trying to create, right? In personal development, we're trying to create more empowering habits, right? Because once habits are actually really, really beneficial to us, right? Because once something becomes a habit, you have automated that action. And now it takes you a lot less effort to bring yourself to do it. So they actually really serve us.
Mhm.
I guess what we will speak to is like, can we intentionally choose them, right? The more intentionally you choose them, the more aware you are of your habits, and the more you can have them work for you instead of against you. And I guess that's where the good and bad label comes in, right? The bad label comes from a place of it's not really serving you, right? It's working against you. It's not getting you where you want to go,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Maybe at some point it did, now it no longer does, right? But what makes habits is the fact that we do something over and over again so many times and now becomes a part of who we are, right?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
it's that unconsciously competent piece,
right,
right? That's when I mean, the early stages, we are consciously incompetent. In other words, there's something that we're not good at. At first we stumbled when we started to learn how to walk. We kept falling over, we kept trying different things, and finally it worked. Now, thank goodness, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
right.
At least I hope to, right? And it becomes what we term unconsciously competent. In other words, it's like our driving. I don't have to think about driving when I come in. I don't have to think about the words or the language or how to speak.
Okay. Right,
Yeah,
right. Think about when you learn a new language. If you've ever tried to learn a new language, it's really, really hard to get the words out, right?
yeah,
And now, just think of me. This is not my first language. I no longer think about it because it has become ingrained in who I am,
yeah.
right? So habits are actually not just what we do in our everyday life, but they're also um, our thinking, habitual thinking, the way we process things, the way we associate things. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram. I actually read a little piece from Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe
Okay.
Dispenza,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
he talks about this, like how much um, we're conditioned to do things, right? And it becomes who we are. It creates our personality, right? And our personality is created by all the habitual things that we do every day,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the more we become aware of the things that we do and the ways of thinking that we have, right? The thought patterns that run us, and the more we are in the driver's seat versus the pattern driving,
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 driving
right?
the behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And of course that points to for me, the number one thing that creates all change is having the awareness piece,
right.
right? I mean, just unconsciously we think everything's fine, innocently we're carrying on with what we are, but when we are really aware of you know something that's not serving us, that's the first opportunity for change. And I'm reminded a bit of a story about scientists. The scientists with mice and rats, and they put them in a maze, and they try and get them to go through all the maze. And at the end, there's a door, and if they go through the door, they get rewarded. And
Mm,
so they have to knock on the door, and then they get the reward. Well, a rat will keep doing that over and over and over again, creating a habit, right? Because something was rewarded on the end, and all I have to do is keep doing it and I'll get rewarded. Well, part of that experiment is they take the reward away. Well, the rat
mm,
goes down the maze, gets to where the reward was supposed to be, and there's no reward. Okay.
mm.
Next day he keeps going down the maze, going to the door, no reward. Now, the difference between a rat and a human? The rat
Sorry.
knows when to stop.
Right, right.
But we habitually, because it served us well once or over a period of time, we keep going back to it. We keep using it and using it and using it, mostly out of habit, expecting different results or the same results, and we're not getting them. So, then we have to be aware of that. And then,
Right. It's a lack of awareness, right?
yeah,
Because if you're not aware, how are you going to turn around and change it?
yeah,
Right?
totally.
Awareness is always the very, very, very first step.
Yeah,
Once the awareness comes in, now you understand that there's something that at the very least you need to look at, right? And then it comes the fun part.
okay.
What do we do about it?
What do we do about it?
What do we do about it, right? Because then what we're up against is that this is an automated action or way of thinking or a pattern that we have, right? So oftentimes, even after that awareness sets in, it slips our awareness because we do it without thinking,
Yes.
right? That's what makes it automated. We
Yep.
just do it without thinking, right? So the awareness piece, I find, is also part of the process, right? In the sense that the awareness comes in at first, and then now the work is to catch it, right? The very first step is not now that I know I'm going to change all my habits, I'm going to be a different person. It doesn't quite work that way, right?
Mhm.
Now that I'm aware of it, I'm going to start catching it. And at first, I don't catch it all the time. At first, I realized after I did something, like, oh, I did that again, like I realized afterwards, right? And the trick there, right? And this is where we're going to get a little bit deeper into how do we change habits. The trick there is to change another habitual way of doing things, which is getting angry at ourselves,
Oh, okay.
right? So that's the trick. You notice, oh, crap, I did that again. Do not let yourself go in the rabbit hole of now beating yourself up, feeling guilty, feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm never going to change this, right? Don't tell yourself the story. Don't get in the story, right? Okay, well, at least I saw it. Focus on the fact that at least you realize you're doing it, because you most likely went your entire life without realizing it
Yep.
until that point,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So that's the very, very, very step. And the more you do that, and the more compassionate you are towards yourself, and the more times you're going to catch it. And guess what? Repetition rewires the brain. Now you're going to catch yourself more and more and quicker until you're going to be the one in charge. That's going to be able to actually pattern interrupt.
Yeah.
Right? Pattern interrupt and start shifting things into what you intentionally choose to do. So
And
that's one part. But you have to decide, what am I swapping it with? What am I going to do instead? Right? So awareness, then you start practicing catching yourself, but you also have to have something to replace it with. Because guess what? If we do certain things in a certain way, we need something to fill in that gap, right? What are we going to fill it in with? So you're going to intentionally pick what you're going to do instead, right? And over time, with patience and a lot of compassion towards yourself, the rewiring process of the brain starts. But it
yeah.
takes time.
Well, it does, and in some ways, I mean, that part, that to become unconsciously competent in that, yes, there's that piece of repetition, and there's lots of articles about that. The 21 days of breaking a habit, 10,000 hours. There are a lot of different
How
things
long
that
can
it takes, right? I know personally certain habits that I had, particularly around smoking. Let's just say, for instance, I mean, the switch was very quick. What lingered was the urges, which was the tendency to sort of go in that direction. But again, noticing again, there I got an urge. Oh, I'm having a cup of coffee. I've got an urge. And knowing that I don't have to do anything about it in this particular case, because the habit, it wasn't so much of a habit of breaking smoking, it was a habit of creating health.
I love that reframe. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Looking at where you're like what you're replacing it with.
well, and that right, because I can focus on what I consider the problem. Okay. I can't, which is, stopping smoking. So stopping smoking becomes a problem, and I'm focusing on stopping smoking. And then all of a sudden it's sort of like, well, there's a big struggle with stopping smoking. So I'm focusing on the problem. And as coaches, and I know your practice is the same. We love to hear your problem, but we don't focus on the problem.
Right.
We focus on what's outside the problem. And in this case, what I'm looking for is not to stop smoking, but to have healthier habits.
Right.
And so I'm focusing more on the healthy habit rather than, oh man, this is such a struggle to quit smoking. And actually, it really wasn't, because I was focusing on healthy habits.
I mean, it's really like, the habit is the coping, right? So we could go even a little bit deeper on the other side of it, right? So
Yeah.
when we look at the habit that we're trying to break, it's important to ask ourselves, well, what's behind that? why am I doing this? What urge is this feeling? Like, what gap is this
Yeah.
feeling?
Why
Where
was
is
I
this
doing it in the
coming?
first place? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
really take it as, well, this is amazing feedback. I've
Absolutely.
developed this coping mechanism around the specific circumstances or whatever it is. I do this every time. I don't like it because, right? But what is it telling me, right? And why do I want to break it? Well, I want to break it because I want to replace it with a healthier habit, right? In this case, in your case, not smoking, just healthier,
Yeah.
right? But what was like smoking feeling for me, right? What was behind that?
Yeah.
And so, really taking the habit that you're trying to break as incredible feedback. It's just feedback. I know it doesn't work for me now that I notice it. What was it doing for me? How else can I go and like look at what that habit is feeling or trying to cope with, and go address that instead, right?
Yes.
Instead of
Yeah.
doing something that's unhealthy for me, and how can I replace it with a better habit, right? And so yeah, repetition is one motivation, right? Basically we're speaking to motivation, like what is your motivation to break this habit, right? So again, remove your focus from the problem,
Hmm.
right? The problem is the feedback, and really place your focus on where you're going. What
Yes.
is this doing for you?
Yeah.
You know, how would it change your life to be a non-smoker?
Yeah.
What would be the benefits of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And really, really place your focus on that, because what you focus on grows, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's how our minds work. Our minds want to work on, wherever our attention is, that's where we're going to have it. So if our attention is always on the problem, whether it's being overweight or smoking or I drink too much, whatever that is, all you're doing is feeding the problem,
Right.
right? So for me, like, ask yourself, like, who do I need to be in this moment? I need, and then act accordingly, which is pointing your attention to, what are healthy habits? How do I want to show up in this world?
Right.
And I didn't want to show up with a cigarette in my hand every 5 minutes, it seemed, kind of a thing. I didn't want to change my location every time I had an urge to because you couldn't smoke in public anymore. You had to go to all these private little places. It was getting pretty darn inconvenient.
And you know what? So this is actually, like pointing to something really important too, right? So if I want to stop drinking, right? So what else can you do to help yourself, right? Because breaking habits is not the easiest thing at the beginning, and then resistance is going to kick in. Where it's going to take you towards the habit, because the mind always wants to go back to what it knows. The mind always wants to simplify, right? So go back to the automated action,
Yep,
right?
yep,
So
yep.
some things that you can do are like, you can set visual reminders for yourself. You can stack things on top of each other, right? Like if I want to get in the habit of like moving my body for 5 minutes every day, I can make a deal with myself that I will put a post-it note on my coffee machine, 5 minutes of movement before your coffee. Because I know that every day, inevitably, I'm going to make my coffee. If for you is something else, is your green juice or whatever it is, right? The one thing that you inevitably do every day, that's where you're going to stack that, like either, visual clue or like action on top. So that now you remember to do that. You reward yourself with the thing that you really enjoy doing, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing is like, let's say in your example, or like in the example of someone that wants to stop drinking, I'm probably not going to go to a bar for a while, right? Where everyone is drinking,
Well,
right?
you're
So
gonna you're gonna
I,
be yeah. You don't want to test yourself too early, right?
right,
Yeah,
right. So I'm going to let that habit set in, right? When I'm really strong and good about it, I'm no longer drinking, I'm no longer tempted, I'm fully in alignment with why I'm doing this, and I feel really good about my green juice choice. That's when I can go and test it out, go to a bar, right? But again, so that's an example of an activity that you would avoid. But also, again, if I'm a non-smoker and all my friends smoke, I probably don't want to be around that. I probably don't want to be around a bunch of
yeah,
people that are smoking in my face, right? So choosing your environment, not just in terms of where you go, but who you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
Having supportive people that are going to support you in this. They're not going to smoke in your face, right? Or drink in your face, or keep, guilt tripping you because you're not meeting them, right? But they're supportive of your choices. I think that's also really important. We often don't think about that, right? Because we go back to our environment, which is filled with clues that bring us back to who we are, our habitual self, right?
Well, the triggers, right? And like you were alluding to earlier, and I just got off a conversation just before the show. We were talking about triggers and trauma and various other things. Well, it's all they're all habitual thinking. It's all thought created, and and so whether it's the thought of struggling, quitting something, there's also the same mechanism that's behind I'm not good enough. The habit of not trying new things because. I was almost going to go into a song there, Wizard of Oz or something like that. It's like where's this music coming from, Elvis? Oh boy.
It is so true, right? Because then our mind, and that's the other thing that we're going to be up against when we're trying to break a habit, is all the reasons why not. And those are the ways that your mind creates a resistance, right? We oftentimes talk about resistance, right? Again, avoiding going into, I am so weak. I gave in. I'm not strong enough, right? That's the resistance. That's a brain trying to take you back exactly where you were, right?
Well, it's trying to prove you're right. Yeah,
your mind is working against you in this instance, because its only job is to be efficient, efficient as possible.
So my big flip is with the non-smoking piece. It was, who do I want to be in the moment? I want to be a non-smoker.
Right.
So be a non-smoker. What do non-smokers do? Non-smokers don't smoke. Oh, brilliant. Kind of a thing. Right. And so that was kind of my little trick about staying on purpose, right? Anytime I had an urge, I would go, well, that's interesting, I got an urge, but I'm a non-smoker.
Right.
Like I don't smoke, right? And so very quickly I went from 3 packs a day to nothing, and found myself doing things that I would normally do with a cigarette in my hand, not doing them anymore. Right. Because I was being a non-smoker.
Right. So it's also what I'm hearing you say, like you're speaking to shifting your identity, right?
100%.
Shifting your identity. I mean, I remember I smoked maybe for like 6 months or a year when I was like 15 years old. It's so scary. I'm a 10-year-old. It's just, I just scared myself. But like for a very brief moment. But so I remember like it was just a gesture of having this cigarette and fitting in with all my other Italian friends,
Yes.
That's what I liked, but I didn't actually enjoy it. I always thought it didn't taste good, but I still did it because I felt like I fit in. It just gave me more confidence. It made me feel a little different, right? So I stepped into a slightly different identity. And at that age, right, I was like just stepping into myself and growing. And like it were the first years of really finding myself in a sense, right? So when I think back to that, it's like, that's really what I gained from it, right? And there is, like you're saying, it's an identity shift. What does a non-smoker do? They don't smoke, right?
Yeah.
Who do I need to be a non-smoker? What are the things that I can no longer do, right?
Yeah. You said something really interesting too about how you started to, right? And I know we're like, substitute smoking with anything, like like whatever you want, public speak, whatever habit that you have. It doesn't, because the mechanism is all the same. We associate, and this is why we talk about inside out work, right? Because a lot of what habits are associated with, and I love this, I think it was Michael Neal that first I heard it from anyways. There are no solutions to feelings.
Right.
And so we have this feeling, and that's how my smoking started. I've had the same thing. I had some insecure thinking. I wanted to be part of a group that I felt I needed to be part of,
Right.
and they all smoked. And I thought, hey, they're offering me a cigarette. I want to be part of that. I want to feel like welcomed, whatever for
Right.
those
I
feelings.
want to belong. I want to
Yeah,
be.
I want to be long, right?
Right.
And so I accepted it. And yeah, there was those brief moments where I felt, oh God, I'm accepted now. I feel accepted, right? And I latched out thinking that must be the mechanism. That must be the way of doing it. And then it just got into a habit when and the part was I was so unconscious that the reason why I did it in the first place was no longer valid.
Right. Right.
But the act was there. It's the same with the habits of creating our mind thinking around, oh, I'm not good enough, or everybody's against me. Those are habitual thinking habits.
Right.
And at one point in your life that might have been valid, that might have been the truth, but it may not be now, right? So you have to sort of like, okay, so if that's not true, and that's part of my challenge was the thinking that was holding the habit. I had to challenge it. I had to say, is it true now? Is it really true? Can I really quit smoking? Do I really need to be smoking? Well, it turns out I don't need to be smoking.
Because that's the other thing, right? You just, when you just said that, that's the other thing. Sometimes with something like, again, smoking, because it feels like such a difficult thing to break, there's conditioning behind that too. That we
Yes,
think is so difficult that it paralyzes us from even trying. Right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, again, it is always, always, always a step by step by step process. It never is a cold turkey. I've changed forever. I mean, maybe in some instances it is, but there's steps getting to that cold turkey too.
Well,
You know, like,
turkey is one step. Okay, that was one step that started my process.
right,
But there's a series of steps that continue. It's
right,
not like
right,
bang, you're
right,
right.
exactly.
Cold turkey is just I just didn't buy cigarettes anymore.
And they never bothered you again. And you were
Oh
always like,
no. Well,
exactly.
right. Right.
So
No, it
it's a
still did.
process. Yeah,
Oh yeah. There's the drug that still has to go through your system,
right.
the cleansing, the toxic
Yeah, yeah,
things like that. And then the habitual thinking has to leave
right,
too, right? I have
right,
to keep reminding myself, hey, what are you doing? You're a non-smoker.
right, right. No, so much of habit, like, so this awareness piece, right?
Mhm.
Become aware of it, start catching yourself non-judgmentally with compassion, right?
Key, yes.
And do it over and over and over again. Have something to replace it with, right?
It's helpful. Yeah.
Stack it to something you already do without even thinking, like brush your teeth or take a shower or make your coffee, whatever it is, put your shoes on, right? I have these pills that I need to take every morning. I put them in front of my coffee. Every time I open the cabinet, that thing falls on my head. Do you think I can forget? And that's how I got myself to remember it, right? Now I have moved it because I got tired of getting hit by it, but like I wasn't doing it. So like
Where's this blood coming from?
this is happening, right? So create your own path to success. Like you have to create the circumstances and the environment for you to be able to be successful. Surround yourself with people that support you.
Yeah.
Do activities that support your new habit. Become that person through living and breathing what that person would do or wouldn't do. Again, right? You wouldn't go to a smoke bar if you're trying to stop smoking.
No. I mean, common sense has to play into it, right?
Right, but we don't really think about it that way. We don't really we look at the habit and we think it's an isolated thing. It's important to understand that everything in our lives, so what creates our environment, our reality, supports those habits. It's
Well,
molded around those habits.
can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
thing we do is a habit.
Right.
Right. So if I am going to, so if I have to, like, no two objects can occupy the same space. So no two habits can occupy the same space. No two thoughts can occupy the same space. So if I have the thought of, smoking, right? Like you said, it has to be replaced. So if you're going to replace it with something, and it will be replaced with something, why not create it with something that you want to have it in
Exactly.
place, right? So you have that power. Like, you get to be whoever you want to be in that moment. So it's, for me, it was like, I'm going to be the non-smoker. And boy, I played that role pretty good. Like, if you ever been around a recovering non-smoker, it's sort of like, it's like, why are you lighting that cigarette? They're really bad for you. I did that for a little bit. Okay.
But like, here's the thing. It's that, the reason why these habits don't serve as perpetuate is because of that lack of awareness again, right?
Yeah.
So once you get aware of that, and I want people to really connect with this. Once you become aware of that, right? Again, the habitual way of thinking about ourselves is to feel bad about ourselves, feel guilty, feel shame, beat ourselves up. But like, see it this way. Holy crap, now I see it. What an opportunity to change my life, to actually have the reins and be able to choose what I'm going to make a habit.
Yeah.
Be able to be the driver.
Yeah.
Of my life. Like to really, it's truly, and that's why we called it unlocking your potential, is truly unlocking infinite potential. Because now you can choose intentionally. Well, who do I want to be instead? What would be cool to be, right? What can I do instead, right? And really not going to the place of why did I do this? And like, honestly, a lot of it's there because you were probably conditioned to be that way from birth, oftentimes, right? It's something that you've seen modeled. It's something that was normalized in your reality, and you just picked it up. And you didn't know anything better because there was a lack of comparison. So just the fact that you sit there and you have some habits that you want to work on and swap and change, that's progress. Absolutely. That's evolution. That's a beginning. That's a beginning of your evolution. That's a beginning of you stepping into your potential. Because you're saying no. You're saying, I'm taking charge. I'm making the decision of what I'm going to replace that with.
Yeah.
And there's excitement in that.
Not only excitement, there's hope in that.
Right.
And what this world really needs now is a lot of hope.
It's an empowered way of looking at it.
Absolutely.
Right? Instead of really focusing on how bad we feel about all these things, that I never hit the gym my whole life and like I'm a lazy person, right? How is that changing? That habit that you want to change? It's not. Okay, you're someone who has never worked out. I want to be athletic. What does an athletic person do? They go to the gym. Yeah. Where did they start? Where did they start? They didn't start 7 days.
See, you just hit a really. I just got goosebumps right there, because it's not about the gym.
It's not about it. It's about
It's about who you want to be.
Right.
Now, it may include the gym.
Right.
And a lot of people go, oh God, I'm going to get this fitness machine in the house. I'm going to be healthy. No. You got to start off with, who do you want to be?
Right.
And then, yes, it might include a home gym. It might include going for walks every day. Right. Who knows what it is, but you have to start with who you want to be and then act accordingly.
Right. Because that comes from your own inner motivation. Right. Yeah. So I'm not going to the gym because that's what's on Instagram, or that's what's,
well, that's what everybody's doing. So it must be
or that's where I meet guys. I mean, maybe you could do that. I don't know. That's never worked for me. But like, I don't really want to look at anyone sweating when I'm at the gym, or I don't want them to look at me either.
Yeah.
But, what I'm saying is, there has to be it's deeply personal.
Yes,
Changing habits is deeply personal.
absolutely.
What is your deepest motivation for this?
Yeah.
Don't do it because your husband's nagging you.
No, that's not
Don't do it because your friend did it and they look so good. What is your motivation?
absolutely.
What drives you? How
Yeah.
is this going to make your life better? How
Yeah.
is this going to even make you feel more confident and better about yourself? That's okay if you do it to work towards that. Who doesn't want to feel more confident?
Yeah.
Everybody does,
Yeah.
right? What are some things that support that? And always bring yourself back to that. Always go back to your why.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we teach everyone as
Well,
coaches, right? What is your why?
and I have and I'm gonna I'll send you a copy so you can share it with your group too. But I have a really nice little worksheet that I was working with clients, and it's the 10 questions. And we talked about this in other shows, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you look at what you want to change, right? And it's about about finding out what the motivation is behind the change, right? So you recognize, oh, I want to quit smoking. Okay. So if I quit smoking, I will be able to, and then you fill out the blank. And then you ask that same question again and again and again. And you'll find that you get deeper and deeper into the real reasons why you wanted to quit smoking. I want to live long enough so I can see my grandchildren get married. I want to, and it solidifies it right there and then. It's sort of like there's absolutely no question. Yes, I know it's a struggle. Yes, I know it's hard work, but like anything, any change, like if I cross my arms one way, that's a habit. Now I'm going to ask you to cross it the other way, and
So
it's like
awkward.
awkward. Well, of course it's awkward. You're breaking a habit. It's supposed to be
That's
awkward.
a habit too. I love that you brought this up. It's so true. That happens to me every day. Well, not every day. I don't go to yoga every day, but that happened to me in yoga today. She's like, cross your arms this way. I'm like, oh my God, why can't, like, I felt like, why can I not do this ever? But the other way feels so natural.
Yeah, yeah, and all it is just that. So when you realize the awkwardness or the struggle is just part of the process, it doesn't mean shit, I'm failing.
Right.
It just means you're evolving, you're changing.
Right.
And the more often you do that, your potential opens up and you really get to see, man, I am stronger than I thought I was. I am good enough. I am whatever, right?
Right.
So so I'm going to put the later on. I'll put it in the description. But get in touch with either one of us, and I'll send you this sheet, and you can do it on your own, in your own time. But I call it the 10 questions, um, you know, and it's just a process that you can go on your own time, kind of a thing, and it's really helpful.
Really figure out what is underneath it. What's your reason for doing this? Because
Like
guess what?
if you like you said in the beginning, you are now aware that there's something that needs to be changed.
Right.
Like you're aware of a habit, you're aware that it has to be changed, or you feel like it needs to be changed. Well, okay, here's the process. Here's part of it, right? Who do you want to be? What is your why behind the change? Like, what is the reward, right? Because basically, if there's no reward, if there's no hope, right? Why
and
would
also be very hyper aware of your body.
Absolutely.
Because what is going to be your friend in this case is not going to be your mind when you're like trying to rewire a new habit. Your body is going to be what's going to give you the clues, right? So the moment that I get into a habit that I want to try and change, I did it, unconsciously without noticing. The moment that you start feeling like crap inside, that you have that thing in your stomach or in your chest, or you feel the feelings are building up,
Yeah.
What's your clue? Your mind is taking you back to your habitual thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting upset about, let it express. I'm never for like suppressing that.
No.
Let it express. If you need to scream, scream. Actually, you should express it so that you don't go into your mind.
Yes.
Because what we do when we repress a feeling that shows up, that's knocking on the door, when we repress it, if we cannot express through our body in the form of like physical movement or shouting or whatever, your way of emotionally releasing is, what happens is now we go into our head. We start like intellectualizing it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So the moment that you feel that in your body, that's your clue. Okay, I'm a little upset because I fell for it again. Thank you, right? Whatever it is. Maybe it's a little louder than that. Moving on. What is my why? Why am I shifting this habit, right? Always acknowledge it. What's coming, I have feelings about this. Really focus on the feeling in your body rather than going in here.
Yeah.
You cannot go in here, because the moment that you go in here, you're in the program.
Yeah.
That you're trying to change.
Yeah. Yeah. A friend of mine and a coach, I did a workshop with her, Kathy Casey. She talks it like it's like a mental detox, in the sense of that's what's happening. Like you're getting all these shitty feelings and sensations that are just kind of detoxing out of you. And again, as long as you understand that that's the process, it doesn't mean that it's not working. It doesn't mean, as a matter of fact, it means it is working.
Right.
The awkwardness, the noticing of the struggle, the all that kind of stuff, those are all temporary. They're all temporary. And just to focus on, the light at the, well, I shouldn't say the light at the end of the tunnel. That might be depressing, but it's like, or the bright spot on my head. But it's like, but the potential of what's on offer after, right?
Right.
And in really a very, very short period of time, when you consider, our our life and whatever else is concerned. I mean, it took you this long to create one. I guarantee you, it won't take you that long to break one. I guarantee you it. I guarantee you it.
So I want to talk a tiny bit more about the feelings, right? Because
Sure.
something else occurred to me. So the feeling happens, right? We do something, we mess it up again, and now we're upset with ourselves that we fell for it again. Damn, I'm smoking. I don't even realize I lit this thing up, right? Whatever it is. And now you have the feeling, right? So you can shout it out, you can go to the gym, you can, emotionally release however you want. But sometimes you can also just like close your eyes and sit with it and feel where it is in your body.
Yeah.
And breathe into it. Breathe into it, right? Because also that is also part of the, being able to shift your habits, because we also have the habit of making an immediate connection between the feeling and the judgment, right? The feeling comes, we feel bad, and we immediately have a thought pattern that sets off.
That's right. It's attached to.
It's attached to it. So that's also habitual thinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel this thing in my body, immediately I go into disempowerment. I'm not good enough. I'm going to my story, right? So the moment that you close your eyes and feel where it is in your body and you breathe into it, you're doing pattern interruption.
Yeah,
You're now moving, shifting your focus from that reaction into where this is happening in your body.
Yep.
Right? And now you're preoccupied there instead of being rehearsing, telling the story, judging, getting mad, right?
Yep.
Building it up in your intellect.
Yep.
Now you're in your body and accepting that feeling, allowing it to be really feeling it. And we do have the habit, and socially we've been really conditioned to repress that. Don't show sadness, don't show vulnerability. Tears are bad. We're really, actually, they are the healthiest thing you could do for your emotions. They're just there to cleanse you emotionally from the inside out, right? So accept them. Yeah. Accept that discomfort that comes in. It's just discomfort. And guess what? It only takes 90 seconds for that to dissolve.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to I was sharing some research with a client this morning around the thought feeling connection, right? As long as there's thinking about it, right? That feelings were always going to be there, right? But when we can, as you said, with the disconnect, when we focus just on the feelings, we're disconnecting our thinking away from the feelings. that there's a half-life to feelings. So at the moment, it feels like 100%. In 1 minute, it's 50%. So already we see a shift, a half-life of the feelings. And like you said, in another 30 seconds or another minute from there, it's half of that. So it feels even less as long as the thinking. So yeah, I'm a firm believer. Like point to, like I really feel anxious. Well, where does anxious appear for you? Well, right here, right here. Okay.
Mhm.
So just focus on that for a second. Just focus on that. And when you do, like you take a deep breath, whatever you
You can
instinctively
use breath work too
do,
to slow
sure.
down. Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're focusing on the feeling and disconnecting from the source of fuel.
From the machine, from the program.
Machine,
Yeah.
right? And then you go, oh shit, I don't feel that way anymore. Great. Yeah. No,
Right.
no, that's a really good distinction, because as long as you're fueling it, and that's why we don't focus on problems. We don't focus on the habit of not smoking. We focus on the habits of good health, the habits of whatever a non-smoker is, or whatever that appears for you to be. Right?
Really, problems, bad habits, again, they're just amazing feedback.
Yeah.
How would you know to change it if it wasn't showing you that it needs to be changed, how it's not serving you? That's what the problem is, right? Something that's not serving you in that moment, or that
Well,
doesn't.
and we talked a lot about the physical side of things. I just want to, being mindful of our time, but point out the psychological habits. Like, like I have sometimes I get these habits where, you know, um, uh, somebody will say something to me, and immediately I'll take it as criticism, or I'll take it a sort of a wrong way, kind of a thing, right? Um, it's just a habit that comes up. I hear something and right away associate it with something, right? Noticing that I am being triggered, or how you want to interpret it, is really half the battle right there. Is
Right.
that, again, so it's like, okay, so who do I want to be in that moment? I don't want to be the guy that feels like a victim. I want to feel empowered. Well, how does an empowered person act, right? Well, if I'm acting accordingly, if when I hear feedback, it's feedback.
Right. Right.
It's like, it's
Right.
not criticism, right?
Right.
So when I notice that, oh, I'm feeling like I'm being attacked, that's my signal, of, oh no, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. It can't be I'm being attacked. I'm just getting feedback, right? So again, it's a
More words.
yeah.
I see Elsa's, let me bring it in. Let me see if I can do this. Her comment here. Hello, it's true that I started to change last year and failed because I came back to environment associated to my habits. And that's wonderful that you're seeing this. I'm happy that we're,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, put this in front of your awareness. And I want to take this opportunity. I hope that you don't mind, to help you take this a little bit further by removing that word failed.
Yeah.
Let's be very intentional in the ways that we use our words, because the word failed, I'm sure, has a very negative connotation,
Oh, that's for me.
right? I'm completely projecting because I can't have this conversation right face to face.
Yeah.
But let's replace that with feedback.
Yeah.
I got feedback, right? There's no failure, right? It was just feedback. Now you know. Without that feedback, you wouldn't know. Do you
Yeah.
see how that changes things? Without that failure, now you know, right? Without that feedback, now you know. That sounds very different. So it's also changing the habit of using certain words that creates empowerment within us,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Swapping those really heavily loaded words that create a sense of, I'm not good enough,
Right.
constriction, right? So if a word makes you feel constricted, think of a different way that you could express that same concept
Mm-hmm.
that's more empowering. And that's NLP, that's coaching, and but like, there's a lot of power to the words that we use in general to describe
Well,
ourselves.
words are probably the most powerful
Right,
thing
right,
we have in our toolbox.
right. So I just wanted to point that out. And then she's saying, I'm trying again from last month, more prepared now. My mind had time to understand why I want to change this habit. Thank you. Was very, very happy when what we talk about is helping the audience. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'd love to help you through anything that you find challenging or that it's not clear or that we haven't touched upon. But, it really, like all things, one of the things that we always tell people, it's an inside out process, little steps at a time, right? Consistency. And what is your why? I mean, those are key aspects of transformation. There's no transformation without change. There's no change without changing our habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And you're going to have a habit anyway, so you might as well make it a good one.
Right. You're gonna make every single we're like living, walking, breathing habits.
Sure.
We are.
Yeah.
We have to think about every single thing that we do and we say. We would not be getting much done.
No.
Right? The things have to become automated, have to become a habit.
We're trying to do this with our show when we set it up, don't we?
Exactly. And then things become easier, right? Yeah. And they become easier by doing them over and over and over again. So really think about it like starting to walk or starting to talk or riding a bicycle. It feels very hard at first, but over time, you're going to be doing it without even thinking. And the same thing is for habit change, when you're trying to shift something.
And Elsa, like Elsa was pointing out, that whole notion of the failed word, right?
Right.
I mean, can you imagine growing up, learning to walk, and everybody just said to you, well, you're failing.
Right.
We don't, as adults, look at children and tell them, hey, you're doing it all, you're failing, right? But for some reason, we think it's okay from an adult point of view. And it's not. We are, right? We still have that inner child within us. And we still have all that unlimited potential. We are the only ones that are really judging ourselves. So give ourselves a break, right? Love yourself more.
Be like the kid that falls and just gets up. And
Exactly.
That's how you learn, right? That's just how you learn.
It's just feedback.
Learning works.
Love it.
Learning works by trying over and over again. Everything works that way, right? Yeah. So be the child that just bumps his. I mean, my kids, oh my God, the number of times that they had so many bruises and bumps, they could care less. I'm like, he looks like I beat him up all day. That was really what I was all concerned about with my son, my first kid. And my daughter was way more cautious, but he couldn't care less. No. He could not care less because he only had one objective. He wanted to stand up like all of us. Yep. He wanted to walk towards us, right? Yep. And so bring yourself back to this mental association. Even when you feel like you're going down into the rabbit hole, think about a kid that's learning to walk.
Well, I love that. I mean, I learned so much from my grandkids and my kids as they were growing. I have a 4-year-old, actually he's 5 now, but when he was 4 years old, grandson, he learned how to ride a motorcycle, an actual motorcycle. And yeah, you can think of what grandma and grandpa were thinking about. It's like, oh my goodness, right? But it was funny, the parents kept him in a really safe environment. There was a lot of sawdust and in a big field and stuff like that. But what I loved about this kid, and for me, this is the greatest life lesson when we're making change in our life, is every time he crashed, every time he fell over on his bike, he would get up and yell to us, I'm okay. And he'd get back on his bike and just keep going, right? And trying different things. And that, you know what? Try shit out. If it doesn't work, that's feedback.
Right.
But yell to yourself.
You get up and do it again, and guess what? It's okay to take breaks from it too.
You're okay.
You can take breaks. You can just give yourself a break too.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, and it doesn't mean that you have taken 5 steps back. you can get up and do it again once you have gathered your strength and your motivation again.
Absolutely.
Maybe there's something to be looked at there, right? Maybe we just need to work on that motivation a little bit more. Maybe we need to try a different way.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's okay to take breaks.
And
right?
Don't worry about what happened in the past or
Right.
what might happen in the future. They're all illusions anyway. You're in the perfect place right now.
Right.
You're in
There's
the
a reason
perfect
why we're
place
doing
right
it
now.
now. Yeah.
You have all the power, you have all the tools, and you know what? And if there's anything more, I mean, reach out to us. I mean, we're more than happy to, sit down and, have a half hour, an hour conversation with you about this. Because, I mean, let's face it, if more of us do better, the world will do better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And on that,
Mwah!
we're gonna leave you. Listen to us on podcasts if that's easier for you. We're gonna drop the episode tomorrow or the next day. Subscribe, follow us, share the show with someone that you love that you think could benefit from this conversation and help us amplify our impact.
Yeah.
We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye now.
Until next time. How long do I need to stay like this?
I don't know. We're gonna